When did your childhood rival appear at your mother's funeral as your estate trustee? AITA for losing it on my childhood rival when he showed up at my house in the middle of a massive family crisis, claiming he was the new trustee of my dead mother's estate. Yeah, you read that right. I just found out the entire life I thought my mother left me is basically gone, and the guy holding the keys is Jonathan Choi, 24M, the absolute menace who used to follow me around our community pool when we were 10 and steal my super soaker. I'm currently sitting on my stairs in my mother's huge, silent house in Bellwether Estates, trying to figure out how I went from processing grief to potentially homeless in 48 hours. I feel physically sick. My iPhone 14 battery is at 4%, I have 27 unread texts, and my chest is so tight I can barely breathe. I don't even know where to start with this dumpster fire, TBH. Let's start with the grief because that's the foundational layer of this mess. My mother passed away 6 weeks ago. It was fast, it was brutal, and it left me, Ethan Flores, 43M, reeling. I took a full 6 weeks of unpaid leave from my marketing job. Grief is messy. I was trying to handle the funeral, the endless paperwork, and mostly just trying not to spiral into a Talenti gelato coma every night. My mother's house in Bellwether Estates is massive, completely unnecessary for one person, but it was hers, and theoretically it was mine now. Bellwether Estates is one of those places where the HOA fees are astronomical, the lawns are pristine, and everyone drives a BMW they can't afford. My mom's 2018 Honda Civic was considered the shame of the street, LOL. It's supposed to be a safe, quiet haven. Spoiler alert, it is neither safe nor quiet, mostly thanks to my neighbor Billy Jones, 49M. Billy is the self-appointed gatekeeper of civility. His entire personality is built around filing noise complaints. Seriously, the man has called the police because my gardener's leaf blower started at 7:58 a.m. instead of the 8:00 a.m. start time dictated by the HOA bylaw, Article 3, Section B, subsection Roman 2. The time I ordered a late-night Chipotle delivery at 10:30 p.m., he called the HOA saying my loitering food vendor was disturbing the peace. I swear I have a $347 bill right now for an HOA fine because my cat Tofu sat on the wrong part of the sidewalk. The man is a nightmare. 2 weeks ago I was deep in the emotional fog trying to sort through boxes in the garage when I heard this frantic knocking on the front door. It was Billy. He was wearing a visor and an Apple Watch, looking like he was about to run a triathlon, which he definitely wasn't. Flores, he hissed. He never uses my first name. Your contractor is using power tools outside of the designated hours. It is Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. Those hours run from 9:00 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. per the revised covenant. I just stared at him. I was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt stained with Ben & Jerry's. Billy, I don't have a contractor. I'm putting away old Christmas decorations. He pointed to the garage. That sound, the grinding, it is clearly a violation. That, I said, realizing what he meant, is the sound of my cousin Patricia Hall, 47F, trying to dismantle a rusty IKEA shelving unit that has been in our garage since 2007. Patricia is the real MVP through all this. She's the parentified child of our family, always the responsible one, always taking care of everyone, usually at her own expense. She drove 3 hours from her job to help me sort the house. She's exhausted but wouldn't say no. Billy squinted. Patricia Hall, she is not listed as an approved vendor. She's family, Billy, she's moving shelves. The sound of the grinding is unnerving and detracting from my quality of life, he insisted. He literally had the audacity to say this while holding a mug that said world's best neighbor. I know, past me should have keyed his beat-up Toyota Corolla right then, but I was too tired. Patricia came up behind me, wiping grease on her jeans. Billy, if you don't back away from the door, I will start up that shelf again and aim the sparks directly at your overpriced azaleas. Billy turned bright red and stomped away, muttering about the HOA and how he was owed a refund for the security he pays for. He ended up sending me 3 separate texts demanding I apologize for Patricia's tone, which I left on read. That was the background noise. The real drama started 3 days later. My mother's finances were complicated, to say the least. She had a will, but she had also set up this complex trust years ago. I kept trying to access the paperwork, but her old financial advisor, Mr. Albright, kept giving me the runaround. I needed the money too. I had drained my savings handling the funeral costs, and my $1,247 rent payment on my apartment, which I was only back at sporadically, was looming. I had already put the groceries $43.67 at Trader Joe's on my credit card because my checking account was scary low. I finally got a meeting with Mr. Albright downtown on the 5th floor of the ugly glass building. I brought Patricia for emotional support. We sat down and Mr. Albright started rambling about legal jargon and asset management. So, I asked, cutting to the chase, can I access the funds now? I need to start paying bills related to the estate, and frankly, I need to pay for a plumber. The $85 charge for the clogged drain is irritating me. Mr. Albright cleared his throat and did that thing where he adjusted his tie about 5 times. Ethan, there's been a recent change. A change? What do you mean? I asked. I felt that specific low-level dread start to turn in my stomach, like when you realize your Netflix autopay failed. Your mother, bless her soul, was quite particular about long-term stewardship, he said. In the final amendment to the Bellwether Family Trust dated exactly 6 months ago, she named a new trustee. Okay, I said, trying to be calm. Who? I thought it was supposed to be me. It was meant to be you, Patricia jumped in, her voice already sharp. We talked about this, Ethan. You were designated the sole heir and successor trustee. Well, the amendment supersedes previous directives, Mr. Albright said, taking a sip of water. He sounded genuinely nervous, which made my hands start shaking. I pulled out my iPhone, checked the time 1:55 p.m. and tried to focus. "Who is it?" I demanded. She designated Jonathan Choi as the new sole, primary, and irrevocable trustee of the estate and all major assets, including the Bellwether property. The world went silent. I felt like I was floating 10 feet above my body. "Wait, what?" I stammered. "Choi, Jonathan Choi, you mean the annoying kid with the braces who used to live 2 doors down from us? He's 24 years old, he's a child." Patricia looked equally stunned. "Ethan, who is that?" "He was my childhood rival," I practically shouted. "We hated each other. We competed over who could win the most free personal pan pizzas from the library reading contest. My mother loathed that kid. She literally grounded me for 3 days after I let him borrow my Nintendo DS and he spilled orange soda on it. This is a joke." Mr. Albright shook his head, looking miserable. "It is legally binding, Ethan. He has full custodial control of all the assets. Your mother stipulated that while you are the beneficiary, all disbursements must be approved by the trustee to ensure responsible long-term maintenance of the family legacy until you reach the age of 50. I started laughing. A harsh, hysterical sound. 50? I'm 43. That's 7 years of this trust fund baby dictating my life. She didn't do this, I insisted. There's no way. My mother hated financial drama. She barely knew Jonathan Choi. He was never at our house. She became quite close with his father, Jack Hernandez, 70M, in the last year, Albright murmured, looking at the ceiling. Now, Jack Hernandez, that's a whole other story. He moved into the community about a year and a half ago. He was a notorious +1 drama kind of guy, always showing up at HOA meetings with some ridiculously young, overly tanned blonde woman, stirring up trouble, making passive-aggressive comments about the landscaping. He was a complete sleaze, and my mom, for some insane reason, started inviting him to bridge night. I tried to tell her the man was a walking red flag, but she just said he was charming. Past me was such an idiot for not pressing harder. It hit me then, the cold, hard realization of betrayal, not just by the universe but potentially by my own mother, or maybe by Jack Hernandez manipulating her during her illness. "Jack Hernandez's son is the trustee?" Patricia whispered, horrified. "Ethan, this sounds like a serious case of financial manipulation." "It gets worse," Albright continued. "Jonathan has already taken steps to secure the property. He changed the gate code to the Bellwether house this morning." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He what? That's my home. I'm literally living there right now." "He said that since he is the trustee and you are currently unemployed and unstable due to grief, he had a fiduciary duty to secure the assets. He sent me a Zelle transaction receipt for $200 that he spent on new key fobs and locks for the exterior doors." "Unstable? I'm grieving. That's not unstable." My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my phone. It clattered to the floor, showing a notification that I had used 95% of my monthly data plan. Seriously, the timing. He also mentioned that he intends to put the property up for short-term rental on Airbnb while the legal issues are sorted out. He said he saw on TikTok that short-term rentals in gated communities are huge right now. I wanted to vomit. I felt that specific physical reaction, my ears ringing, vision blurring, and the overwhelming urge to just scream until my throat gave out. I didn't care about the money right then. I cared about the sheer, mind-boggling disrespect of this kid taking my house and planning to turn it into a party pad using a TikTok scheme. "We need a lawyer," Patricia said, pulling me toward the door. "Right now, we need to file an emergency motion. This is ridiculous." We left Mr. Albright's office in a daze. I tried calling the Bellwether gate, but the operator, who always sounds like he hates his job, just kept repeating, "I cannot give you the current access code, sir. That is sensitive information." I texted Patricia as she drove us back toward the estates. I'm serious. I want to kill that kid. I'm gonna post his picture on every community board." "Patricia, we will handle this legally, Ethan. You need to breathe. Breathe. I'm about to be locked out of my own house. I have 2 hours before my therapy appointment, which I desperately need BTW, and I can't even shower." When we pulled up to the main gate of Bellwether Estates, my rage turned to pure, unadulterated shock. The gate was open, which was already weird. They are never open. And parked right outside my mother's driveway in my usual spot, no less, was a pristine, brand new black Tesla Model S. The license plate said CH01. "That's him," I muttered. "The audacity," Patricia hissed, pulling the car into the driveway behind the Tesla. I jumped out, not even bothering to close the door quietly. The front door of the house was ajar, and standing in the entryway looking incredibly pleased with himself was Jonathan Choi, 24M. He had definitely bulked up since he was a kid, wearing designer jeans and a crisp white shirt. He looked less like a financial trustee and more like a guy who just got his first investment banking bonus. He was talking on his iPhone, laughing. "Yeah, I know, Dad, Bellwether Estates. It's totally giving old money vibes, but the HOA is going to hate my renters, LOL." He saw me then, standing on the driveway, my body vibrating with years of repressed rivalry and fresh, raw grief. He didn't look remorseful. He looked bored. "Ethan," he said, not even a greeting. He put his hand over his phone. "Look, I'm kind of busy setting up the Ring doorbell app. I'm going to need you to remove your vehicle immediately. We need this space for the cleaning crew I hired." "You need to do what?" I felt dizzy. I literally could not process the words. "I'm giving you 30 minutes to collect the essentials you need before I formally change the locks," Jonathan continued, pulling a set of shiny new keys from his pocket. "I was going to be generous and give you a few days, but frankly, you look unstable and I can't have a potential liability on the property." "You gaslighting little weasel," I spat. "This is my mother's house. You can't just lock me out. What are you even doing here?" "I am securing the assets, Ethan. It's called fiduciary duty. Making sure the funds aren't being mismanaged by an emotionally compromised individual." He made a dismissive gesture with his hand like I was a fly he was swatting away. "The first thing I did, I canceled the contract for that ridiculous plumber you hired. I'm not paying $85 for a simple clog you could fix yourself." "You canceled what?" I took 2 steps toward him. I wanted to shake him until his teeth rattled. I need those contractors, you absolute clown. The water main is leaking in the basement. It's not a simple clog. I was literally on the phone with the company yesterday. Jonathan smiled a smug, awful smile. Oh, the basement. Yes, I saw that. I'm going to ignore that for now. It's an unnecessary expense. You are going to ruin this house, I shouted. I am the trustee, Ethan. I call the shots. He held up his phone and pointed toward the back of the house. And speaking of shots, I just checked the Ring doorbell footage. You had a major confrontation with Billy Jones, 49M, a few days ago where your cousin threatened to damage another resident's property. The HOA forwarded the complaint directly to me. I've sent you a formal warning via certified mail about maintaining community decorum. You are going through my Ring footage. You're stalking me. It's community surveillance, he corrected. It's all part of the job. You're being dramatic. Now move the Civic. Your 30-minute starts now. I have a contractor meeting at 5:30 p.m. to discuss turning the pool house into a rentable studio apartment. That was the last straw, the pool house. That was my mother's private sanctuary, where she did her watercolors. I lost it. I completely lost it. I lunged forward, not even sure what I was going to do, but Patricia grabbed me hard by the arm. Ethan, no, she yelled. You are out of your mind if you think you are going to turn her house into some cash grab scheme, I screamed at Jonathan. You have no heart, no respect, and frankly, I will see you in court, you little sociopath. Jonathan didn't flinch. He just gave Patricia a look of pity like he was dealing with an unstable toddler. See, this is exactly why the trust document was changed. Total emotional volatility. He paused, put his phone to his ear again, and walked slightly inside the house. Hold on, Dad, I need to get this sorted. Oh, one other thing, Ethan, he called over his shoulder, still talking into the phone. The reason your mother designated me specifically, she knew you would be too soft. She wanted someone with an iron fist. And by the way, he dropped his voice conspiratorially to his father on the phone. The first thing I found was a huge box of paperwork related to the old man next door. Jack Hernandez, 70M, mentioned something about paying off his +1 problem. There are $200 withdrawals scattered all through your mother's banking history labeled JVH settlement. Looks like your mom was busy buying silence for her new boyfriend. My head snapped up. $200 withdrawals. What are you talking about? Jack Hernandez is not her boyfriend. He's just a friend, and what settlement? I don't know, Ethan, Jonathan said, stepping fully into the house and preparing to slam the door. But I'm the one who's going to find out. And until then, I strongly advise you to find somewhere else to sleep tonight because I'm locking down this property. And if you try to get back in, the Ring doorbell will automatically notify the police. He was about to shut the door, but I caught the edge, adrenaline pumping through me. Jonathan, I said, my voice dangerously low. You can have the money, you can have the house, but I need one thing. You tell me right now, did my mother know Jack Hernandez was secretly manipulating her before she died? Did she know she was signing her life over to his slimy little family? Jonathan just looked at me. His expression changed finally, not bored, not smug, something dark. I don't think she did, Ethan, he said. He pushed the door hard, forcing me to pull my hand out quickly. But that's no longer your concern, that's my trust to handle now. The door slammed shut. I heard the deadbolt engaging with a loud final clack. I stood there, breathing hard, looking at the solid wood locked door of my mother's home. I was locked out. The house, the money, the secrets, all of it was being held hostage by my 24-year-old childhood rival who might be covering up a massive betrayal orchestrated by his father. And I realized Jonathan had just implied the betrayal was even deeper than I thought, involving some sort of settlement that my grieving mother had been paying for. Patricia put a hand on my shoulder. Ethan, we need to go right now. We need to find a lawyer who specializes in elder financial abuse and conservatorship issues. But where am I supposed to go? I whispered, looking around the empty, perfect street of Bellwether Estates. The sun was going down and the air was getting cold. I didn't have a change of clothes. I didn't have my medicine. I didn't even have my cat Tofu, who was still inside somewhere. We were walking back to the car when Billy Jones, 49M, slowly drove by in his golf cart. He stopped, leaned out, and gave me a massive, triumphant grin. I heard the yelling, Flores, he said. The HOA doesn't take kindly to domestic disturbances. You need to leave the premises before I call security. It looks like you're having trouble maintaining control of your assets, just like I predicted. I turned to Billy, and for the first time in 6 weeks, the grief was overtaken entirely by pure explosive rage. I was about to unleash every single pent-up feeling on him, but Patricia grabbed my arm and dragged me into her car. We are going to my place, she said, starting the engine. You need a lawyer, not a jail cell. She peeled out of the driveway, forcing the Tesla owner, Jonathan Choi, who was now standing on the porch holding Tofu, my cat, to jump back inside. As we drove away, I saw him on his phone, already taking pictures of the damages I caused. I'm sitting here now in Patricia's guest room, wearing a borrowed pair of pajamas that are too small. I have officially been locked out of my mother's house and am under threat of legal action by the trust, run by a kid who still probably watches Hulu. I need to figure out what the JVH settlement is, why my mom would name a 24-year-old who hates me as the trustee, and how I can afford a lawyer when all my money is currently under his control. I have $14.32 in my checking account and a mountain of anxiety. I have a feeling this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. This whole thing feels like betrayal layered on top of betrayal, and I still don't know the full story of what my mother was trying to hide, or what Jack Hernandez and his son are really after. And for the record, yes, I know I look stupid for being locked out of my own inheritance, but I'm still asking. AITA for wanting to burn the whole Bellwether Estates community to the ground right now. What is my first move? I'm typing this from Patricia's 47F guest room, which smells faintly of lavender and institutional disinfectant. It's comforting, NGL, but my body is still vibrating from the adrenaline crash of being physically locked out of my own home. My therapist is going to have a field day with this next week. Patricia, being the parentified child she is, immediately went into crisis management mode. She shoved a bottle of lukewarm Costco water and a bag of Cheez-Its into my hands and started dialing her contacts. She knows everyone in the legal world because she spent 10 years managing compliance for a corporate firm before she burned out and started her own consulting gig. Ethan, breathe, she kept saying while simultaneously arguing with a receptionist named Brenda about an emergency consult fee. We are not going to jail and we are not setting fire to anyone's azaleas no matter how much Billy Jones deserves it. I was basically catatonic staring at my phone. I had $14.32 left. I checked my bank account 5 times just to make sure the app wasn't glitching. Nope, $14.32. The lawyer consultation alone was going to cost more than my entire net worth. So 2 days later, we finally secured a meeting with a reputable estate lawyer. The retainer fee looked like a phone number. Seriously, it was $10,000. Patricia put the first $5,000 on her business credit card, bless her heart. I owe her my life TBH. She didn't even blink, just said, we handle family emergencies first, payment details later. Like I said, MVP. The lawyer, Ms. Anya Sharma, looked exactly like the kind of person you want handling your generational trauma and potential inheritance fraud. Sharp suit, sharp eyes, and zero tolerance for my rambling. I laid out the entire story, starting from the Super Soaker rivalry and ending with Jonathan 24M smugly changing the gate code and threatening to airbomb my mother's pool house. I explained the timeline. Mom dies, 6 weeks of grief, then bam, surprise trustee who is 24 and clearly influenced by his shady father, Jack Hernandez, 70M. When I mentioned the part about Jonathan saying my mother wanted someone with an iron fist because I was too soft, Ms. Sharma paused me. That's key, Ethan, she said, tapping her pen on the desk. If the amendment was made in the last 6 months, we need to immediately investigate undue influence or diminished capacity. Your mother was battling illness, correct? Yes, but she was sharp, Ms. Sharma, I insisted. She was lucid right up until the end, but Jack Hernandez was everywhere. He was her +1 at everything. He was grooming her, I swear. Then I brought up the most damning piece of information, the JVH settlement. Jonathan said he found withdrawals labeled JVH settlement in her accounts. $200 here, $200 there, I explained. What the hell is that? Ms. Sharma didn't look surprised, which made me feel sicker. JVH, Jack V. Hernandez, if she was paying regular, small sums to someone connected to him, especially if she labeled it settlement, that indicates either blackmail, a quiet financial favor, or ongoing restitution for some previous damage or agreement. Patricia leaned forward, fire in her eyes. So he manipulated her into paying him off, and then he manipulated her into changing the trust in favor of his son. It's circumstantial, but the narrative is strong, Ms. Sharma confirmed. However, the trust is irrevocable until you turn 50. That's a tough wall. The immediate concern is getting you back into the house and stopping the asset depletion. We are filing an emergency petition for temporary injunctive relief, citing undue influence and financial misconduct by the trustee, specifically his plan to short-term rent the property, which constitutes a devaluation of the principal asset. This whole meeting made me feel both hopeful and deeply depressed. Hopeful because maybe I wasn't entirely screwed. Depressed because I realized my mother, in her last vulnerable months, might have been blackmailed into giving control of her legacy to the worst possible people. A week went by where I basically lived at Patricia's, alternating between watching old seasons of the Great British Bake Off and anxiously refreshing my Gmail. Ms. Sharma was moving fast, filing paperwork, and subpoenaing Jonathan Choi for all documentation related to the trust amendment and the property. In the meantime, the logistics were a nightmare. I still had my apartment downtown, but the lease was ending in 6 weeks, and I needed to be at Bellwether to handle the estate. Now I was floating in this terrible limbo. My phone started blowing up with notifications, not from the lawyer but from the Bellwether Estates HOA message board. Apparently, Jonathan Choi had decided to fully embrace his role as the 24-year-old feudal lord of my mother's property. He'd posted a formal announcement on the community board. Subject: Notice of Property Management Change, 1450 Willow Creek. Dear Bellwether residents, I am Jonathan Choi, the designated trustee for the Flores Family Trust. I am implementing immediate modern changes to optimize the efficiency and profitability of this asset. Please be advised that the previous occupant, Ethan Flores, has been formally removed from the premises due to ongoing emotional instability and lack of adherence to community covenants. I am implementing a mandatory one-time assessment of $500 per household to cover enhanced security costs related to recent disturbances and unauthorized entry attempts by the former resident. Also, I am installing a dedicated charging station for my Tesla and expect all other residents to respect my parking space. P.S. My father, Jack Hernandez, 70M, will be residing on the property temporarily to assist with oversight. Welcome to the new Bellwether Estates. I literally threw my phone against Patricia's expensive, custom-made velvet pillow. He is charging the entire neighborhood $500 because he locked me out of my own house. I yelled, pacing her pristine kitchen. He is using the trust to fund his Tesla charging station. This is fraud, Patricia. Patricia, who was calmly making an expense report for the lawyer fees, just sighed. Ethan, calm down. This is actually helping our case. He's acting like an irresponsible tyrant. The HOA is going to hate him more than they hate Billy Jones. And she was right. Within an hour, the HOA board erupted. Billy Jones, 49M, who is usually Jonathan's ally in HOA matters, was the first to respond. Ray, Notice of Property Management Change. Mr. Choi, this is an unacceptable overreach. Article 7, Section C prohibits unilateral assessments without a 2/3 majority vote by the current board. Furthermore, the installation of a personal charging station must be approved by the Architectural Review Committee, which I chair. You will receive a formal notice of violation by 5 p.m. today. The former resident florist was merely an inconvenience. You, sir, are a catastrophe. I screenshotted that exchange so fast. Billy Jones, my nemesis, was inadvertently fighting my war. The enemy of my enemy is temporarily my friend, I guess. I still hate him, but I appreciate the bureaucratic chaos he's causing. Fast forward to Friday. Ms. Sharma was ready to file the temporary restraining order. She needed two things: confirmation of the JVH settlement and a sworn statement from someone confirming my mother's possible distress or the undue influence exerted by Jack. I called Patricia. We need to go back to the house. I know where Mom kept her sensitive documents, in the safe behind the horrible painting of the lighthouse. Ethan, Jonathan changed the locks. We can't legally enter until the TRO is filed and approved, she warned. I know, but the garage code, I said, a little light bulb going off. Mom never changed the garage door code. It's been 1007 since 1998. Jonathan is too young to know the old system. He only changed the electronic door locks. Patricia hesitated for 3 seconds, realized I was going to do it with or without her, and agreed. That night, we pulled up to Bellwether Estates around 11:30 p.m. We parked Patricia's car 3 blocks away, which in Bellwether terms is practically a jungle expedition. I felt like I was in a bad heist movie. The air was thick and silent. Every porch light seemed to be staring at me. We tiptoed to the side garage door. I entered the 4 digits 1007. The door creaked open. Victory, we slipped inside the massive 3-car garage, which was still mostly full of Mom's disorganized junk. The house was silent. Jonathan and Jack must have been out or asleep. Okay, main goal, the safe, I whispered to Patricia. We entered the house through the interior garage door. It was instantly obvious that Jonathan was living there. There were huge empty Amazon boxes scattered everywhere, clearly containing expensive electronics. He'd already set up a massive 70-inch TV in the living room, and his disgusting sweat socks were draped over the antique chaise lounge. The disrespect was palpable. We went straight to the upstairs study. The safe was hidden behind a truly dreadful seascape painting, the one Mom won at a community raffle years ago and displayed out of sheer obligation. I moved the painting and opened the small wall safe. The combination was, predictably, my birth year. Inside, I didn't find the will or the trust amendment. Jonathan must have those. But I found 2 things that made my stomach drop entirely out of my body. First, a small, worn, leather-bound journal, Mom's diary from the last year. Second, a stack of canceled checks and receipts. And there it was, a detailed ledger showing monthly payments of $200 dating back exactly 8 months, all meticulously noted in Mom's handwriting. JVH silence. I handed the ledger to Patricia. She gasped softly. Silence? Ethan, what did he have on her? I opened the journal, hands shaking too much to read coherently. I just flipped until I found a date from about 7 months ago, right around the time the trust amendment must have been signed. October 12th, I can't sleep. Jack showed me the photos again. He says he needs the payments to stop his ex-wife from going public, but the amounts are going up. I told him I couldn't afford it, not with the rising medical costs. He suggested the trust amendment. Said Jonathan is sharp and trustworthy, and it would ensure Ethan is protected from himself while simultaneously securing Jack's position within the community. I feel trapped. I hate feeling trapped. I choked on air. Oh my God, I managed to whisper. It wasn't a romance. It wasn't just manipulation for money. He was blackmailing her. The JVH settlement wasn't a settlement at all, it was hush money. And the trust amendment wasn't designed to protect me until I was 50. It was designed to give Jack's son full control of the assets so Jack himself could remain financially secure, perhaps continuing to bleed the trust dry through management fees or by living on the property rent-free. My mother saw it as the only way out of the blackmail, thinking she was protecting me from financial scandal or exposure of whatever secret Jack was holding. We heard footsteps then. Heavy, slow footsteps coming up the stairs. Who's there? A low voice called out. Jack Hernandez, 70M. Panic hit me like a physical wave. Patricia immediately grabbed the journal and the ledger and shoved them into her purse. Ethan, run, she hissed. We bolted into the hallway, heading toward the back stairs. Jack was rounding the corner of the main staircase, wearing a disgusting silk robe and looking furious. Flores, what the hell are you doing in my house? He roared. It's not your house, you greasy old snake, I yelled back because apparently adrenaline makes me forget about being quiet. We scrambled down the back stairs. We could hear Jack stumbling behind us, probably calling Jonathan. We were almost to the garage door when the kitchen light flipped on. Standing there holding a huge ceramic mug probably containing chamomile tea, the psychopath, was Jonathan Choi. He looked genuinely startled for once. What are you doing here? Jonathan demanded, dropping the mug. It shattered spectacularly, glass and lukewarm liquid everywhere. Retrieving what's mine, I shouted, already halfway into the garage. Patricia yelled, we have your mother's journal, Jack. We know everything about your blackmail scheme. That stopped Jack, who was standing at the top of the stairs, still yelling incoherently. The color drained completely from his face. Jonathan, however, looked furious but also strangely calculating. Get out. Jonathan screamed, running toward us. You are violating the trust terms and trespassing. I'm calling the police. We didn't wait. We ran out the garage, quickly punched 1007 to close the door, and took off running down the quiet, perfectly manicured street. As we sprinted down the sidewalk, I realized I was still wearing the 2 small borrowed pajamas. I probably looked insane. We jumped into Patricia's car and peeled out, definitely breaking the 25 mph speed limit. Update: this morning, 3 days later, Ms. Sharma officially filed the emergency motion for temporary restraining order. We included excerpts from the journal and copies of the JVH silence ledger entries. That evidence turned the case from whiny heir versus smart trustee into suspected financial elder abuse and coercion. The hearing was set for next week. Until then, Jonathan was not allowed to sell, rent, or significantly alter the property. Small win, but a win nonetheless. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Jonathan started spamming me with increasingly unhinged text messages, accusing me of breaking and entering, theft, and defaming his father's good name. Jonathan Choi, 24M, today 10:15 a.m. You have stolen private property and violated my trust authority. My father is preparing a countersuit. The journal is inadmissible. I am filing a police report against you and your cousin. I hope you enjoy spending what little money you have left on legal fees. Me, see you in court, blackmail Jr. Jonathan Choi, 24M, today 10:18 a.m. I am sending a copy of your response to the judge. See, emotionally compromised. I blocked him. It felt like cutting off a toxic limb. I needed the silence. But the real drama came from Billy Jones, 49M. Remember him, the self-appointed neighborhood tyrant? He texted me from an unknown number. Unknown number, today 11:30 a.m. Flores, call me immediately. It's about your cat. My heart seized up. Tofu, I completely forgot my cat was being held hostage by Jonathan. I unblocked Jonathan just long enough to scream at him. Me, where's my cat? If you hurt Tofu, I swear to God I will make your life a living hell. Jonathan Choi, 24M, the cat is fine. However, your friend Billy Jones has been demanding I remove the cat from the premises as it constitutes free-roaming wildlife that violates Article 2, Section D. I was planning on taking it to the local shelter this afternoon. I immediately called the unknown number. It was Billy. Flores, he said, sounding agitated. I am calling because this Choi kid is a menace. He is destroying the community standard. He has parked his Tesla diagonally across 3 visitor spots, and now he is trying to introduce a biological contaminant, your filthy cat, into the common area. I took a deep breath. Billy, I need Tofu back. Can you help me? I don't help people, Flores. I maintain order, Billy sniffed. But if the cat were to escape, and if I were to find it, and if I were to deliver it to a neutral third party, i.e. your cousin's house, which is thankfully outside the bellwether jurisdiction, that would solve 2 problems, the cat problem and the Jonathan Choi problem. Billy, are you offering to catnap Tofu for me? I am merely offering to restore the structural integrity of the community by removing a source of conflict and potential feline debris. Meet me at the Starbucks parking lot on Route 7 at 4:00 p.m. Do not be late. I literally couldn't believe it. My arch-nemesis, the guy who fined me $347 for the placement of my cat on the sidewalk, was now orchestrating a feline rescue mission. Betrayal of trust can lead to the strangest alliances. 3 days after that, the custody hearing was underway. I was sitting next to Ms. Sharma, trying not to look like I was wearing a suit borrowed from a much smaller person. Across the aisle sat Jonathan and Jack Hernandez. Jack looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week, fiddling nervously with his tie. Jonathan, however, looked perfectly composed, like he was presenting a quarterly earnings report. The judge, a terrifying woman with reading glasses balanced on her nose, listened intently as Ms. Sharma laid out the evidence. The blackmail ledger, the journal entries detailing coercion, and Jonathan's wildly unprofessional behavior as a fiduciary, the HOA texts, and the attempt to charge the neighborhood $500. When it was their turn, Jonathan's lawyer, a sweaty guy named Mr. Denton, stood up and tried to argue that the journal was a forged document, that the JVH settlement was merely a vague abbreviation for joint venture holding, and that my mother had clearly named Jonathan because I was emotionally volatile and unable to handle the wealth. Mr. Denton pointed at me. Your Honor, Mr. Flores has already proven his instability by illegally breaking and entering the property where he allegedly stole these highly convenient diaries to support his claim. I wanted to jump over the table and throttle him. Ms. Sharma put a hand firmly on my leg. Then Jonathan spoke. He had a smooth, calm voice and he sounded incredibly reasonable. Your Honor, I sympathize with Ethan's grief. I truly do. But my duty is to the integrity of the trust. His mother loved him, but she knew his habits. His inability to hold down a stable career, his chronic overspending, his dependency on others, these are facts. The trust amendment was clear. I was placed here to manage the assets until Ethan reaches an age of proven maturity, which she stipulated as 50. He was basically saying I was a spoiled, middle-aged loser who needed a babysitter. It stung because, well, maybe he wasn't entirely wrong about the overspending and dependency part. That was the core of the betrayal. Did my mother truly think so little of me? The judge stopped him. Mr. Choi, the court has serious concerns regarding the clear evidence of coercion against the decedent, as evidenced by these financial records and diary entries. Regardless of Mr. Flores' current employment status, you have demonstrated a clear willingness to misuse your fiduciary position for personal gain, and you have failed to maintain the asset in good order, ignoring a necessary plumbing repair. She leveled her gaze at Jonathan. While the amendment is clearly stated, I cannot in good conscience allow full unilateral control of the assets to remain with a trustee who exhibits such severe conflict of interest. Jack, seated next to Jonathan, looked like he was about to faint. The judge announced her decision. This was the moment of truth. I am denying the immediate petition to remove the trustee entirely as the amendment's stipulations are complex. However, I am ordering an immediate modification of the trust structure effective immediately. This will be an equitable and temporary custody agreement of the Bellwether Family Trust. A custody agreement. Not a win, but definitely not a loss. Mr. Choi, you will remain the financial and legal trustee of the investment portfolio and primary financial instruments. However, Mr. Flores will be immediately instated as the co-trustee of the real property, specifically 1450 Willow Creek, Bellwether Estates. He will manage all matters pertaining to the physical property, including maintenance, repairs, and residency. You may not sell, rent, or lease the property without his written consent, and he will receive full unrestricted access to the home immediately. I almost cried right there in court. I got the house back, my house. Furthermore, the judge continued, looking at Jack Hernandez, I am ordering an independent, immediate forensic audit of all transactions pertaining to the Bellwether Family Trust from the past 18 months, specifically investigating the JVH settlement payments. Any evidence of criminal behavior, including blackmail or financial elder abuse, will be immediately referred to the district attorney's office. Jack Hernandez stood up, trembling, and Jonathan instantly dragged him back down into his seat. And finally, Mr. Choi, the judge said sternly, you are required to vacate the premises within 48 hours. Mr. Flores may return immediately. Any attempt to interfere with his residency or the maintenance of the home will result in immediate and permanent removal as trustee. Boom, Jonathan Choi evicted. The next day, I drove back to Bellwether Estates with Patricia. The judge's order was legally sound and very, very detailed. I had the official papers taped to the driver's side window of my Honda Civic, ready to show the gate guard. The minute I got the temporary access code from the HOA, thanks Billy, I drove through the gates and right up to my mother's driveway. Jonathan's pristine black Tesla was gone. Good, I walked up to the front door. The new locks Jonathan installed were useless. The court order required him to provide me with new keys, which he did via FedEx in a package that reeked of passive aggression. I stepped inside the house. It felt violated. Jonathan had only been there a week, but the energy was all wrong. He'd left behind a trail of protein powder containers, expensive headphones, and a truly depressing amount of takeout menus. The first thing I did, I went to the laundry room and found Tofu's favorite crumpled mouse toy. Tofu was safe at Patricia's house, thankfully, but just seeing the toy made me realize what was important. The second thing I did, I called the plumber. $85 for a simple clog my butt, I muttered, scheduling the expensive but necessary basement repair. As the real property co-trustee, I had control of the maintenance funds. I realized that my mom didn't necessarily think I was a complete failure. She knew I struggled with the high-stakes financial stuff, stocks, portfolios, long-term budgeting, but she trusted me with the house itself. She trusted me to take care of her home. That small realization that she had split the duties took a huge weight off my chest. A few weeks later, things are starting to normalize mostly. I've moved back into the house and it feels like breathing again. Patricia and I are working through the financial paperwork with Ms. Sharma. The forensic audit is ongoing, and it's already uncovered that Jack Hernandez was using a shell company to invoice the trust for consultation fees shortly after the amendment was made. It confirms what we suspected. Jack manipulated my grieving, ill mother to set up his son to control her wealth, ensuring Jack himself would benefit from the JVH settlement and ongoing fees. Jonathan Choi is still the financial trustee, which is the messy part of the custody agreement. He has to approve all disbursements from the investment accounts, but I manage the property budget, which is currently the biggest cost center. The tension is high. Last week, I submitted a request to the trust for $5,000 to replace the leaking hot water heater. Jonathan Choi, 24M, email subject. Ray water heater replacement 1450 Willow Creek. Ethan, this expense seems excessive. I have sourced a used water heater on Craigslist for $500 that seems adequate. Please justify the need for a new appliance. As fiduciary, I am required to maintain the principal, not renovate it to your preference. I sent back an email that made Ms. Sharma proud. Me email subject. Ray water heater replacement 1450 Willow Creek. Jonathan, as co-trustee of the real property, I have secured 3 bids from licensed contractors. The $5,000 estimate is for a high-efficiency unit with a 10-year warranty, necessary to prevent long-term damage to the asset. I remind you that failing to approve necessary repairs constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty and subjects you to immediate court intervention per the Custody Agreement, Order 4B, Section Roman 2. If the used water heater fails and floods the basement, which, by the way, still needs structural repair from the earlier leak you ignored, the liability will fall squarely on the financial trustee. Approve the expenditure by 5 p.m. today or I will file for sanctions. He approved it at 4:57 p.m. Victory by 4 minutes. It's exhausting, but I am learning how to play the game. I also saw Billy Jones 49M yesterday. He was meticulously measuring the distance between my mailbox and the street curb. He nodded at me, a tiny, almost invisible nod of grudging respect. Flores, he said, using my last name as always. Your new water heater is loud. I have checked the HOA bylaws, Article 3, Section D. As long as the decibel level remains below 45 dB after 10 p.m., it is compliant. However, your cat Tofu was seen chasing a butterfly near my azaleas. That constitutes unauthorized wildlife activity. Next time I am sending a fine directly to the trust. I just smiled. Thanks for the heads up, Billy. I'll let my financial trustee, Jonathan Choi, handle that fine. He seems to enjoy processing paperwork. Billy actually smirked. He got it. He knew the custody agreement meant I was redirecting his annoying complaints right back to the smug kid who tried to assess the neighborhood $500. Final reflection, current status. It's been about 3 months since I was locked out. I still have bad days. I still miss my mom fiercely, and the knowledge that she was manipulated, maybe even blackmailed, hurts deeply. But the grief is changing. It's becoming less about the shock of her death and more about the determination to protect her legacy from the parasites who tried to steal it. The legal fight isn't over. The forensic audit is going to take months, and I fully expect Jack Hernandez to face consequences. Jonathan will probably remain the financial trustee until the audit is complete and the judge makes a final ruling on his fitness. But I am home, I have my cat, and I have control of the physical space that reminds me of my mother. I had to return to my marketing job, which is stressful, but the routine helps. I still check my bank account, but now I know I have a roof over my head and a cousin MVP who has my back. I realized I didn't need the entire $10 million trust to be whole. I needed the house, the safety, and the truth about my mother's final months. I got 2 out of 3, and the third is coming. The custody agreement, this messy, imperfect split of power, is a much better resolution than I thought I'd get. It forces us to communicate and forces Jonathan to be accountable, which is the only way to deal with a manipulative rival. I'm not proud of how I handled everything, yelling at Jonathan, the illegal break-in, nearly hitting Billy with my car, but I was reacting to massive betrayal. Now I am being strategic, which is what my mother actually wanted. Yesterday I laughed when I found a ridiculous note Jonathan left taped inside the spice cabinet saying, "Must refill organic ground cardamom by Sunday." He's a jerk, but he's a very particular jerk, and somehow reading that made me realize I am going to be okay. I am playing chess now, not just screaming at the front door. So AITA for wanting to burn down Bellwether Estates. Maybe a little, but I'm settling for filing for sanctions instead. It's cleaner, quieter, and Billy Jones appreciates the decorum. We'll update if Jonathan tries to expense a subscription to Trust Fund monthly or if Jack Hernandez gets indicted. Stay tuned.